This is Sports Spectrum, the sports and faith podcast where we bring Jesus into the conversation. Here's your host, Jason Romano.
Hey guys, welcome to Sports Spectrum. I am Jason Romano. My email address, jason@sportspectrum.com. jason@sportspectrum.com. I would love to hear from you. Any ideas you have for future guests on the show? Any thoughts on today's interview with Chad Veach? You can email me directly, jason@sportspectrum.com. And we are presented by Water Mission, a nonprofit Christian engineering ministry that helps the global water crisis with safe water, sanitation, and hygiene solutions in developing countries and disaster areas. They're serving more than 5 million people in 56 countries, and a great place if you're thinking about wanting to sow a seed into a ministry that's actually tangibly changing lives. Water Mission is the place to do that, fighting the global water crisis. Check them out at watermission.org to learn more and pray with them. watermission.org. We're also presented today by Compassion International. You know about Compassion, releasing children from poverty, and they're doing a great event right now with professional athletes, teaming up to release children from poverty. 70,000 kids right now may be without a sponsorship, a normal child sponsorship through Compassion because of COVID-19. So check out their website, compassion.com/teamup to learn more and to help release a child from poverty today. Chad Veach joins us here today on Sports Spectrum, the founder and lead pastor of ZOE Church in Los Angeles. Chad is an international speaker, author of 2 best-selling books, Faith Forward Future and Unreasonable Hope. He's married to Julia. He's got 4 kids, the host of a leadership podcast called Leadership Lean In. And now Chad adds one more tool to the toolbox, and that's his new book, Help, I Work with People. And it releases August 18th. It released August 18th. And Chad has a very large influence out there in the social media world, 300,000 plus followers on Instagram. And he's doing a great work telling people about Jesus, especially with this new book, Help, I Work with People. This is a fun conversation. He's a big sports fan as well, growing up in Seattle, now living in Los Angeles. We talk about the Lakers. We talk about the Mariners, Kobe Bryant, leadership, lots of good nuggets here from Chad Veach. Take a listen to Chad as he joins us here today on Sports Spectrum. Chad Veach, welcome to Sports Spectrum.
Hey, thank you so much for having me on. This is great. First of all, great name for your podcast. This is awesome.
I appreciate it, man. We're glad to have you here, and we intersect sports and faith. So why don't we start with your love of sports? And I see you on Instagram rocking the throwback Lakers jackets and pastoring out in LA. When did that love of sports begin for you?
Well, my dad's just a big sports fan. He's reading the sports page every day and always watching the game, always watching golf after church on Sunday. And, we grew up with the Sonics, the Mariners, and the Seahawks. Those are the big 3 for us, and grew up in the Seattle area. My grandparents had season tickets to the Seahawks when the Kingdome was still up and going. And I was there in 1995 when we had a one game playing against the Angels with Griffey Jr. and those guys, and they won. And yes. Griffey would go on against the Yankees to have that big, play at home plate. And I just grew up around sports, and I got my father to thank.
So is that your guy? Is Griffey Jr. the guy when I say Chad Veach, childhood sports fan? Is Griffey the first guy that comes to mind?
Wow, he's one of them. I would say him, Gary Payton, Sean Kemp. Those are just, those are the big Mount Rushmore for us. I put Edgar Martinez right up there as well.
So you're in LA now, and have you kind of converted into the world of Los Angeles sports? There's a lot to choose from, certainly the Lakers and the Dodgers being the dominant two.
I definitely feel like my menu, I kind of went to a Cheesecake Factory style menu. It's a little bit bigger options being in LA. I have gone with, I'm still diehard Seahawk for the NFL, still diehard college football all the way, University of Washington Huskies forever. Okay. My wife is a 4th generation Husky. The Sonic thing was really tragic. And, to have a franchise ripped away from you, it was devastating. And I just so happened to have already lived in LA during the three-peat with Shaq and Kobe. So I was already, that was my second, favorite team. And my favorite player growing up forever was Magic Johnson. So the Laker transition was pretty smooth and easy because of how bitter we were at, Clay Bennett for stealing our franchise. And then, hockey just isn't really a priority. So I kind of keep up with those guys. But, yeah, it's awesome to be in LA. It's a great sports city. It's bizarre because it doesn't have like, going to Eugene, Oregon, it's all they have is the Ducks. You definitely don't feel that in LA. And yet at the same time, when the Dodgers are winning, the Lakers are winning, there's just no place that's better than LA.
Yeah. And I saw you posted on Instagram, your son's being 5 years old, his project he did on Kobe. And to think about all that's taken place this year in 2020, and Kobe's death was really what sent this year into a place that none of us saw coming. Tell me about Kobe's death and how it impacted you, certainly being in Los Angeles.
Well, it's so funny you ask. I was just with someone this week, and they said the Kobe Bryant death will be like I remember where I was when JFK was shot, or 9/11, these big events in history. And I was actually in between services. I was sitting in the back with a couple, and he got an alert, and Kobe Bryant just passed away, and we couldn't believe it. And the next service was our 12 o'clock service, and you just see people weeping in the middle of our church service. And the rest of the day was just filled with tears. Went down to Staples Center, and we had church that night, and the city was rocked. You have to think this kid from age 18 to, the day he passed was the beloved. I heard Bill Plaschke say that week, Plaschke was on the radio saying that he had just become the most important and most favorite Laker of all time because of the mistake Magic had just made on First Take and, quitting on Jeannie Buss without telling her. And he kind of, people didn't appreciate that. So Kobe was the guy. He was LA, and he was showing up to games, and he was helping people, and won an Oscar. He just was the heartbeat of the city. And so it's a day I'll never forget.
Yeah, it was a tough day for all of us. I was on an airplane flying to Miami to go to the Super Bowl, on an airplane, getting the news through the Wi-Fi or whatever that they had connected. And even on an airplane, everybody was solemn and quiet, and you could sense that they were starting to find out as the news trickled. It was horrific to watch, but it allowed us to appreciate, look back, and understand the greatness that he was and that he stood for and that he was about, certainly as a basketball player. Do you have a favorite Kobe moment? Is there one I can ask you about from his playing days that stands out for you?
I mean, I have so many, the 81 game. I remember watching that. I think that the game-winning shot against, Denver, ironically, when he's in the middle of a trial and it's in court in the morning and hitting a game winner at night. Incredible. I thought that was a pretty great moment. But, one of my favorite moments, I was there at Staples Center when he threw the lob to Shaq against the Blazers.
Against Portland, yeah.
And that's just an all-time sports moment. And to be there at Staples Center was just, the place was just in a frenzy. So my last favorite Kobe moment was his last game.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah.
And, just a terrible year. He just, the Lakers just mailed it in. Said, we're just going to give Kobe a whole year. We're going to give this guy 2 banners up there and an entire year to mail it in. And, but I felt like he redeemed the whole year with that night.
Yeah, he did. It was an amazing night. To score 60 in your last game, by the way, is there any better way to go out other than winning a championship? Come on.
And you got Ice Cube jumping around, Snoop Dogg, Kanye, you got all of LA. That's the beauty of LA, is that, he had Jack and every celebrity there that night feeling giddy like they were kids, watching this guy like it was in 2000 or 2001 again.
It's incredible. Chad Veach is our guest here on Sports Spectrum. His new book is called Help. I Work with People. We're going to talk about the new book in just a second, but we love to share testimonies, Chad, on this show. Can you share your journey to Jesus a little bit and how you came to faith?
Yeah, I'm a pastor's kid, grew up in church, wonderful parents, great upbringing. But, I always kind of ran from the call of God and wanting to serve God. Maybe it's just youthfulness, but also I thought it was a lot of my parents were such good pastors and good people that I wanted to kind of bring some separation, because I saw how much they gave and loved and helped and served and sacrificed. And I didn't know if I wanted to do that with my life. So ironically, it was in the kingdom at an event called Promise Keepers. I don't know if you remember Promise Keepers.
Sure, of course. Yeah.
But it was 65,000 men in the kingdom.
Wow.
300 level, singing a hymn, and I just fully surrendered my life over to Jesus and haven't looked back since that day.
It's incredible. Now, for you, there's a lot of moments in all of our journeys of faith. Was there a moment for you when you realized God was calling you to be a voice for him in terms of pastoring? Certainly having your dad as a pastor, I would have to imagine was an influence there, but just the influence that you have, the leadership, the platform, the fact that you're writing books. Can you point back to a specific moment when you realized that this was the calling that the Lord had placed for you?
Yeah, I think that moment at 16, that real surrender moment, I knew that. I think another moment, September 10th, 1999. You remember dates when God really marks your life.
Yeah.
And I was actually driving up to a camp in Big Bear, and my buddy put in a cassette teaching of a preacher from Atlanta, Georgia. And he started teaching Galatians 6, 7, and 8. Do not be deceived, for God cannot be mocked. For whatsoever a man sows, that he shall reap. The man that sows to the flesh will of the flesh reap corruption. The man that sows to the spirit will from the spirit reap everlasting life. And he started to teach on ZOE life. The abundant life is really the spirit-filled, spirit-led life. And that day, I felt like, hey, the reason why you are where you are is because you are ruled by your flesh, and it's time to surrender to the spirit. And I felt like it was a moment of God saying, let's go. You're called. You're supposed to walk into something big. Let's start living a spirit-filled life. And that day really it's like the kingdom moment that really changed me.
Wow. At what point, though, do you realize there's one thing to be sort of impacting in a church and building a church, and ZOE Church obviously doing amazing things in LA, but the platform and the way social media has increased platforms for so many, and you have a larger influence now than maybe ever, not just from the church that you planted and pastor at, but others reading your books, seeing social media posts, feeling that encouragement coming from places. That's got to be a different type of level of platform that maybe you didn't anticipate from the Lord.
Yeah, I don't think you ever anticipate the way God's going to use you. You sign up to be used, and then it's his business how he chooses. I heard someone say, you determine the depth of it, and God will he'll determine the breadth of it. And so that's just, it's out of your control. But I really feel like it's about, just saying, hey, whatever's in my hand, I'm going to use it to the best of my ability. So it's like people can laugh at TikTok, but that's a great opportunity to speak to young people about God.
Yeah.
People can laugh at social media. We don't need social media. I don't know. There's a lot of people on social media. There's a lot of people on YouTube. And we got to ask ourselves the question, do we want to reach the people that are already reached, or do we want to reach people that nobody's reached yet? If we want to reach people that nobody else is reaching, we got to do things that no one else is doing. And so I feel like we just try to step into a space and to the best of our ability, make an imprint online and make an imprint in culture. And, that doesn't happen overnight. It takes a lot of hard work and discipline and dedication and editing and creative meetings. And, it's definitely deliberate. But I feel like, you'll love this story. One time I was in an elevator.
Yeah.
And this lady, she's talking, and I said, wow, you have such a cool outfit on. Just so creative. And long story short, we got into a conversation, and she said, well, what do you do? I said, oh, well, I'm a pastor. She goes, you're a pastor? I said, yeah, I pastor a church called ZOE Church here in town. And she said, no way. I run the social media for the NBA. We study your church and learn from you how to do social media.
Wow.
And when I told our team that, they were so happy because, we really work hard at it. And to hear the lady that runs the NBA account saying, I'm learning from the church, that was a sign that we're doing something right.
Well, that's doing your work with excellence, right? I mean, that's what we're called to do.
Absolutely.
We'll get back to our conversation with Chad Veach in just a little bit, but want to tell you some more about our sponsors and partners today, Compassion International and COVID-19. Man, the coronavirus, it's left nearly 70,000 children through Compassion without a sponsor. That is the capacity of an average NFL stadium. So as the world is in the grips of COVID-19, it's led to more sickness. Parents aren't working. Food is scarce. But Compassion is doing something about it, working with some of their pro athlete friends, teaming up to respond to this challenge, hoping to fill a stadium with urgent support for a stadium's worth of children in crisis. You can do your part as well, teaming up with pro athletes to help fill the stadium. Here's how you can help. Go to compassion.com/teamup. That's the website. Compassion.com/teamup. You can make a donation right there. Every donation helping to fill a seat toward a year of needed funding. Pray about it. Go to the website, compassion.com/teamup, and help release a child from poverty today. We're also presented today by Water Mission, fighting the global water crisis. Right now, they're working to stop the global spread of the coronavirus and COVID-19 by providing urgently needed safe water, sanitation, and hygiene solutions to refugee settlements and other vulnerable communities. Check out their website, watermission.org. You can learn more right there. You can pray with them. And man, what a great way to sow a seed into a ministry that's helping people. Think about this. 4.4 billion people lack access to adequate sanitation. 2.1 billion people lacking access to safe water. Every dollar invested in Water Mission yields $4 to $34 in economic return as they help stop the global spread of COVID-19 with safe water and sanitation and hygiene solutions. Check out the website, watermission.org, and pray about helping them today. Now back to our conversation with Chad Veach. He joins us here today on Sports Spectrum. Let's talk about the book, man. Talk about excellence. This book is a game changer, I think. It's called Help, I Work with People. I love the title, and having worked at a place like ESPN for 17 years, I know what it's like to work with people. We're talking about good and maybe some that were more challenging. But tell us about the project and why you embarked on this topic of leadership and the title. I love the title, Help, I Work with People.
Well, I think, from a faith standpoint, people are God's favorite thing in the world. That's why he sent his son. So if I always think what matters to God has to matter to me. So if people are his favorite, they should be my favorite. And they really are. People are my favorite part of life. I think you can't do life well and people wrong. If you want to do life well, you got to do people right. And that's why it's about 2 commandments: love God, love people. And so the book really is an attempt to say, hey, let's move our attitude from help, I work with people, to, I want some help because I really want to be good at influence and great with people skills, because it's hard to win with people that don't like you. In order for people to like you, you got to start with liking them. It's hard to like people. It's hard to lead people that don't like you. So let's get some likability. So, the book really deals with 3 sections: how to lead yourself, how to lead others, and how to lead teams, groups, organizations. And so I think life goes in that order. The hardest person to lead is myself. So really addressing everything with that, and then really getting good with others, people skills, listening, memorizing names, thank you cards. It's like Gary Player says, manners maketh a man. I believe that with all my heart. So I'm really hoping that people will read it and be inspired to embrace other people even more.
Well, in many ways, that's discipleship, isn't it? When you're talking to others, when you're working with others, when you're being discipled and discipling others. I mean, that's a lot of what this is.
Well, I would say it's both evangelism and discipleship. Paul says, I become all things to all people only so that I can win. I'm trying to win them to Christ. So you can't win people that don't like you. You can't, be a great evangelist without great people skills. So I just feel like the book, is a leadership book, but there's so much biblical principle laced within it.
Yeah, it's called Help, I Work with People. Where'd the title come from? I love that.
I went to a class a few years ago, and a lady named Lisa Turker, she's a prolific author.
Sure, yeah.
She said, your title needs to do one of 2 things. Either answer a question that people are asking, or meet a felt need. So when your title is said, people go, ooh, I need that. And so we threw around all kinds of titles, but when we came up with that one, we go, that's it. People are going to hear the title and go, I need to read that book.
Good. I love it. Help, I Work with People, released August 18th. Quick, easy question here, or a hard question. It's an easy one for me to ask. I don't know if it's easy for you to answer, but what's your definition of a leader?
Well, my definition of a leader is influence. If you have influence, you're a leader, because you can't be a leader and not have a following. So if you will ever want to be a leader, you got to just be good with influence. And so I think the other part about leadership besides influence is communication. Leadership is communication. And so it's hard to be a good leader if you're not an effective communicator, whether it be text, writing, as an orator, whatever way you need it, whatever form of communication you choose, you got to be a great communicator and you got to use your influence well. Expand on
the leadership aspect of leading yourself. You said that was the first part of your book. That's a hard thing for all of us, I think, because I might be asking you, Chad, how do I lead myself? What would you say to that person?
Well, that's the trick. That's the hardest part. That's the hard work. Yeah. I can give you all kinds of principles and truths about leading others and leadership principles, but at the end of the day, wisdom is the application of knowledge. Most of us know what we should be doing. We just struggle to connect the dots between knowing and doing. So leading yourself has everything to do with discipline, stewardship, decision-making skills, and holding yourself accountable before you ever try and hold others accountable. So I think leading yourself is the big work. Leading others gets so easy if you lead yourself well.
That's well said. Last couple questions here with Chad Veach. He joins us on Sports Spectrum. What's it been like to be a leader this year during an incredibly poignant moment in history here in 2020? We have a pandemic. We have the racial climate, social justice, protesting, politics, wearing masks. This is such a divisive time. I can't imagine being a leader of such a large amount of people like you are and thinking this one's easy, because this has to be difficult for you. What's this been like?
Well, I think it's never been harder to be a Christian leader. It's never been harder. The political climate, the racial injustice. I think it's it's a time that you got to be okay to be criticized. Mm-hmm. When everything went down with, first of all, what we experienced with Ahmaud Arbery and then George Floyd and the protests, it wasn't one side that was upset with Christian leadership. It was both sides, that I was dealing with, at least in Los Angeles. And, it was a stressful time. It was very difficult. And a lot of times it's not even you, it's the pain and the trauma or the history of what people are dealing with. And as a pastor or as a leader, you're going to take shots and the blame's got to fall with somebody. So I don't think it's ever been harder. I've never talked to more pastors and more leaders that want to quit than right now. And of course, COVID doesn't help that, but I just think it's a difficult time. It's a time that we need encouragement. We need unity. We need to come together. We need to be reminded that there's more people for you than against you. And we got to play the long game. This is not going to go away. We're going to be in COVID, I think, for a really long time. And so we got to just, don't grow weary of doing good. Don't grow weary of the good stuff. Keep loving. Keep putting out good seed. Keep being like Jesus. So I think it's been a trying time, but you know what? We only know if faith is real when it goes through fire and it's tested.
This is the fire that we're all going through, and maybe the biggest fire in some cases for a lot of people in the midst of a pandemic. So 2 questions as we close here. What are you most encouraged about, and what are you most discouraged, or what's concerning you most right now? So let's start with what you're most encouraged about right now. What's really been encouraging for you?
Well, what's most encouraging to me is just the authority of God's word. It's like you read through the Bible and you go, oh, well, God's in control. Well, this place is not my planet. I am not a citizen of this earth.
Yeah.
I am destined to a greater home. That's encouraging. The greatest encouragement is the reality of Jesus active in my life. So I'm encouraged that God is good. God is for us. God is with us, and he is going to lead us. I'm discouraged. Wow, that's a great question. What would discourage me right now? The only thing that discourages me is short-sightedness. People that have really, dug their heels in and tried to make everything political. And I just don't think politics are the solution. I think Jesus is the solution to everything in life. So I would be discouraged by anybody that's getting caught up in politics from a faith leadership standpoint, because I don't think politics will change the world. I think Jesus will change the world.
It's really good. His new book, again, this is Chad Veach. His book is called Help, I Work with People, released August 18th, available everywhere. I wanted to ask you, I've asked a lot of pastors who are sports fans this question. This will be my last question for you. If you could go back to any event, past or present, and be a part of it as a sports fan, where would you go and what game would it be?
Wow, that is so good. I think I would go back. Wow. I mean, obviously Last Dance is influencing my answer a little bit. And then I'm going baseball. I'm just trying to flip through.
Yeah.
And then you got Tiger. Yeah, wow. This is an unbelievable question.
So I'll tell you mine while you think for a second.
Okay, yeah, you tell me yours.
Because somebody asked me this question recently. I said, because it's easy for me to go to the teams that I root for in those moments. But I said, imagine going to 1997 at the Masters. You mentioned Tiger. And Tiger winning that first Masters at 21 years old.
Right.
Like, to me, seeing greatness sort of develop, like almost like Kobe in 2000 when they won against the Pacers. And Kobe just took a leap in terms of his status and who he was and the talent that he had, especially game 4 carrying the Lakers against the Pacers. But seeing Tiger on the verge of greatness and winning that first Masters, I think is where I'd go back to. Yeah.
And even as you're saying, I'm thinking about him that same year at Pebble when he won the U.S. Open by a record amount of shots. That I just rewatched that one. I still think I got to go back to one of the finals of Jordan. Jordan was just, grew up watching, watched every game of all 6 championships. And I would put myself, maybe not in the Steve Kerr, John Paxson game winners. I don't want to be there. I want to be maybe at like the flu game or something like that, where it's just like Jordan at his finest.
Well, the pizza game now, right? Did you see the Last Dance? It isn't even a flu.
The pizza game, the flu. Yeah, exactly.
Incredible. That's a great choice. Chad Veach, thank you, brother. This was great conversation. Again, get his new book, Help, I Work with People. It's out now. Great stuff, my friend. All the best to you.
Hey, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
And many thanks to Chad Veach for joining us here today on Sports Spectrum. If you're in the Los Angeles area, check out ZOE Church. He's doing a great work there. And obviously with COVID-19 and the coronavirus, online might be the best way to go right now to check out ZOE Church and hear Chad Veach speak and preach. He's an international speaker. He's a darn good one. And his new book, again, is called Help, I Work with People, and it released August 18th, a leadership book to help you in leading yourself, leading others, and leading a team. Chad Veach is awesome and really glad that he joined us here today on the show. Appreciate him. We also appreciate our sponsors and partners today. Water Mission, fighting to end the global water crisis. You can check them out at watermission.org to learn more, to donate, and to pray with them. Watermission.org. And Compassion International, the most trusted child development ministry in the world. Compassion.com/teamup is the website. You can pray about it. You can go there, donate, and help release a child from poverty today. We also want to direct you to our website, sportspectrum.com. That's the home base for all of our content. And do us a favor, whatever app that you're listening to right now, this podcast, whatever app you're listening to, click that subscribe button so that you never miss an episode of the podcast. And if you're on Apple Podcast, do us a favor and leave a review. That would be amazing if you left a review. It helps get the word out on what we're doing here with the podcast, and certainly word of mouth is wonderful too. So if you want to share this podcast and tell your friends, tell your family about this conversation with Chad Veach, that would be amazing as well. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name again is Jason Romano. We love you guys. We hope you all have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next time right here on Sports Spectrum.